Welcome to the Friday edition of Juan's World, and you can see I'm back in my kitchen. I'm going to be making baked beans today. I was thinking about having a full English breakfast on Sunday, and I got out some bacon and some sausage and a slice of bread, some eggs, some mushrooms, some tomatoes, and had what they call a good fry up. And you can see it here. Not quite a full English breakfast because baked beans were missing. I know it sounds strange to people who don't know anything about England, but baked beans are an important component of a fried breakfast. Also black pudding, that is a blood sausage, quite common, not likely to get that. Used to be able to get it in Argentina. We call it morcilla. They're very common breakfast dish. Can't get it here, or at least I don't think I can. Haven't really tried, but I haven't seen it in any of the supermarkets that are geared towards Westerners, so it's probably very hard to find. But baked beans is another matter. I can buy them, but I don't want to because it's so much better to make them yourself. So here I am getting started with home style baked beans. Okay, step one is to choose your beans, and here you can see I have chosen white navy beans, also sometimes called cannellini beans, dried beans which you have to soak overnight first, and then the next step is to simmer them for about 2 hours. They don't really get well and truly soft in the 2 hours, but they get soft enough, and I'll show you the stage that they're at after I come back after 2 hours of simmering. Okay, so here's the pot after 2 hours, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take out a few beans. Okay, so let's just take a few beans out, and what we need to do, I don't know if I can get them in focus. There we are. Now what I'm going to do is blow on them. Unfortunately, focus is not working out. Okay, but now you can maybe see that the skin's just starting to peel off when I blow on them. Maybe you can make it out. Sorry, my camera work's not that good. You can see this one is starting to peel. So now we're ready for the next step. And that is that I'm going to take the beans out and put them in a pot. And I'm going to put together the main ingredients in order to bake them so that they become baked beans. Okay, I'm going to save the water that they're cooked in, but for now I need to just scoop out the beans and then add a few ingredients which I'm going to put together. I'm going to fry some bacon, some belly pork, and I've got some brown sugar, some canned tomatoes, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of mustard, a little bit of hot pepper, some odds and ends like that, and then I'm going to bake them for a couple of hours. So this is the part that can be done in several different ways. Baked beans are made with bacon and or belly pork, and it's possible to just put the chopped up belly pork and bacon into the pot with the beans as you're going to bake them, so that it's just basically raw bacon and raw belly pork, and it cooks in the oven. But I prefer to brown off the meat first and put the meat and the tomatoes and the beans all together in the pot. I just think that caramelizing the meats a little bit adds a dimension of flavor that you won't get otherwise. But this is not very common. A lot of times in baked beans, they simply lay the bacon strips in with the beans. And another thing I'm going to do that you won't see very often, I'm going to add some onions right now, and then I'm going to add some red wine. I'm not really going to brown the onions off, I'm just going to soften them. I still have some red wine left from when I made my bolognese sauce, because I don't drink wine. I didn't have a big bottle of wine, but I did have a half bottle that was too much for the bolognese, so I've still got about a cup left. Now I'm just going to try this down, and I turn the heat up because the next step is the wine, and I want the alcohol to boil off. So just give it a few more minutes. Just let everything cook down together. And this really, although it's meant to be a side dish, can be a complete dish in itself, given that you've got bacon, onions, beans, pork, all together. Really a pretty solid, I wouldn't say a full meal, but more than just a little side dish. Certainly if you decide that you want to have this on toast, it will be very, very luxurious, very sophisticated baked beans on toast, not your average beans, means, Heinz kind of thing. Okay, we're ready for the red wine. I'm just going to let that boil for a couple of minutes, let the alcohol boil off, and then I'm ready to assemble everything in my casserole and put everything into the oven. I'm going to set the oven at around 200 degrees centigrade, and I'm going to bake the beans for about 2.5 hours, about an hour and a half with the lid on, and then for the last hour with the lid off. And I'm going to keep some of the water that the baked beans were cooked in aside in case it gets too dry in the roasting process, the baking process, when I've got the lid off. All right, so that's done. I'm going to turn that off. Now I'm going to assemble everything, if I can find a place to do it. All right, here we see step one. I've got all of the beans drained out of their fluid. And now my very next step is going to be to put the bacon and all of the fat that the bacon tried out, and the wine. Plus the onions, of course. Okay. Next step, I'm going to add the onions and the tomatoes, and then I'm going to top up with the water that the beans cooked in, and I'll also add my extra aromatics. I have to just pause for a minute here because it's going to take me a while to get the canned tomatoes open. So tomatoes are added. Now I've got some very dark brown sugar I'm going to add. Not a whole lot. A lot of New England cooks add molasses, brown sugar and molasses. I don't want a whole lot of sweetness, so I'm just going to add a little bit, maybe about 1/3 of a cup. I'm going to toss everything together in a minute if I've got enough space. I have put some of the bean water into the jar that had the tomatoes in them, so that I can squeeze a little bit more of the tomato out, and that's just about right. I just want the beans to be just barely covered. Now I just need to move things around a little. I just want to bury down the bacon and the pork into the liquid. And what's going to happen as they bake over time is that the liquid that they're in is going to thicken and ultimately make just a really beautiful sauce. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to add a little bit of English mustard powder, not a massive amount, just a little bit, and a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Have to go up to my rack here and find all of my sauces. Okay, here's my Worcestershire sauce. Gotta find my mustard. Here it is. Okay. Now some people like to mix the mustard with water before they put it in, but it's not really necessary. I'm just gonna add it like this. Okay. Because it's just a flavoring. It's not like when you're putting it on a plate and you want to have it like a paste. You're just adding the flavor and just a few jabs of Worcester sauce. I might add some little red pepper at some point. But this is looking pretty good. And what you always have to do when you're cooking, even at the outset, like this is just all watery and not particularly good, but just take a little taste. Oh, this is going to be delicious. Now into the oven for 90 minutes at the start, and then uncovered for another hour. Now here's the casserole in the oven after 90 minutes. You can see it's still very watery. and it's nicely bubbling away and doing its thing. And I've taken the cover off and I'm putting it back in the oven for another hour so that the liquid can reduce and thicken. And here is the result. After an hour, you can see there's a small skin on the top, which I'm going to just take care of in a minute.
Alright, so we're all ready to go. So let me just show you the general consistency. You can see the watery sauce has all rendered down so that it's now thick and just lovely to look at, just like canned beans, except so much more flavorful. And I'm just going to take a little bite now. The beans are soft, a rich, complex flavor, and probably what I'll do with my final hurrah here is make a full English, and we'll have some beans with the other ingredients.
Here then is my finished product, a slightly different take on the full English. I've got shirred eggs, which is a kind of scrambled eggs, except you don't mix the whites and the yolks together quite so thoroughly. A banger, that's a sausage, a couple of rashers of bacon, some mushrooms, and the centerpiece, my baked beans. And I'll tell you right now that this was absolutely delicious. See, under the shirred eggs, you can barely see it, a slice of fried bread. A very important component of the full English, to have fried bread with the eggs on the plate, and then you also afterwards have toast with butter and marmalade, but the fried bread goes on the plate itself. So I hope you've enjoyed this tour of baked beans, and please tell your friends, please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you on Tuesday with something or other. I don't know yet. Might be cooking, might be philosophizing, might even be a little bit of planning for travel. Not sure. Have a great weekend.